Welcome into Northside Territory, Foul Territory Network's Cubs podcast. I'm Sahadev Sharma with my partner Patrick Mooney. We are your Cubs beat writers over at The Athletic. And Patrick, there is optimism in Cubs world for multiple reasons, right? But spring training is about to start. Pitchers and catchers report on Super Bowl Sunday. You are heading out to Arizona on Saturday, I believe. Am I right on that? Saturday, and
Yep.
there's always optimism at the beginning of spring, but the Cubs have done good work. They've done good work. I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk, amazing offseason like the Dodgers had, or maybe even you wanted to say the Mets had. But it's been a really strong offseason. They look like a better team. And here's the crazy thing. Dakota, that's spelled wrong, but Dakota projections love the Cubs. They have them at 91 wins, I believe, 91 wins with
Wow.
87.5% chance to make the playoffs. I mean, that's wild to me. That's aggressive, in my opinion, but let's run with the optimism. It's a projection system. It's not, it isn't perfect, but these things, tend to be low. So to see 91 wins is really aggressive.
Yeah, the Mooney projections, all caps, have the Cubs at 83 wins. That's what they are until they prove us otherwise. But no, I was kind of stunned seeing that. Like, did they know something we don't? Like, is Alex Bregman already in Mesa? But I do agree generally with, like, I have a hard time seeing this team collapsing. I think the pitching is good enough. I think it's deep enough. I think the bullpen looks better. I'd imagine Kyle Tucker may hit a couple more 3-run homers that swing some of those close games into blowouts, or maybe stop that 3-game losing streak from becoming like a 2-month spiral. It is amazing though. Like if they don't win this division, I mean, it's just an absolute failure. Like I'm not sold on the Brewers collapsing yet.
Yeah.
That's more your job, it seems like, every year. But just like, and I do think the Reds will be okay. Like, I don't know. There's something about that team bringing in Francona, the hitting, that ballpark. I have a feeling they'll figure it out and probably have a winning season. But just to see like the Cardinals just punt on an entire offseason and like hire coordinators instead. Like, we're not going to sign any major league players, but we're going to have like way more minor league assistant coaches. Like, okay, that's one way to do it. And then, I mean, the Pirates are the Pirates, right? Like, they have not,
right.
They've got some awesome pitchers and just a lot of question marks otherwise. So yeah, I mean, they should clean up in this division.
Right. Listen, I agree with you on the Reds, and I actually think the Pirates, we should not overlook them. Paul Skeens, like when you have a number one like that, and you have young talent that is interesting and hasn't fully emerged yet, like, oh, they're scratching the surface, they're good, they're not great yet. You never know. Like that, I can't rule those teams out. The Cubs have that and established talent now. Like I found it interesting. I was curious about this because Ian Happ gets a lot of hell on the internet, right? Like he just takes a lot of heat for not being this. I don't know what they expect him to be, but he just takes a lot of heat. There are 11 players in baseball that have had 500 plate appearances each of the last 3 seasons and put up a 120 weighted runs graded plus or better. His consistency, that was his biggest question mark, right? Being consistent year after year, month after month, being a consistent offensive producer. He's turned himself into one of the most consistent baseball players in the game. He stays healthy. He's on the field. He's a really productive player. They have production from Seiya Suzuki, Kyle Tucker. You kind of know what you're going to get from guys like that, right? Like really solid producers, great producer in Kyle Tucker's case. You could argue that in Seiya Suzuki's case. You kind of know what you're getting from Nico Horner. I don't know if you know what you're getting from Dansby Swanson, but I guess there's a floor there. And then there's wild cards, right? PCA.
Mm-hmm.
What's going to happen at third base? Is it Matt Shaw? Is there a surprise coming? Is it Michael Busch seems pretty good. We'll see if he can take it to another level or just keep it where it was last year. But there's a lot of stuff that we've seen. We've seen production. So I like that combo of I don't know what we're getting, but there's some upside. And also, like, here's a floor. Here are some solid offensive producers. And the wind is just not going to play like it did last year. It just isn't. And if it does, there's something wrong. Like, it just made no sense. I don't believe Wrigley will play like it did. I believe, like, these players, like, this offense is going to be better. Obviously, the counter to that, pitching. I think their pitching is deep enough, is the thing. Like, both the bullpen and starting pitching, they've done a really good job. Did they add that ace? They didn't. And that's fine. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think it would have looked a lot nicer. But I do think that overall, like, the bullpen, they didn't make like this huge splashy move. I do like the addition of Presley. I do like all the depth moves. So much depth there that they're going to be aggressive with cycling through guys. You know how Counsell is. You know how he thinks. If guys don't work, they can be aggressive because of the depth. Last year, there wasn't as much depth, so they couldn't be as aggressive with making changes. It was a combo of lack of depth and a lack of help. If they get waylaid by injuries, that always changes the conversation. I'm just saying right now, it looks very healthy. You're going to get down there a week in, we're going to hear about 10 injuries, right? It's just like kind of how it is. And it may be minor. It may be like this guy's behind, this guy's this is barking, this guy has a serious injury. It just happens, right? Because they come in, they go through their health protocols, and then we hear about X, Y, and Z. But I do like the bullpen in particular. When you don't make a splashy move, but you do what you did, like I like it. And there's going to be somebody we haven't heard of that's going to just be this awesome reliever this year. It just happens. It happens more often than we even like care to like acknowledge. I feel like I always say this when talking about relievers. Go look at like the top 20. Like, sort by WAR if you want to, sort by whatever you want to on Fangraphs. Go look at it. The top 20 relievers, 18 of them. Like, it's going to be like 18. You're like, where did this guy come from? Like, there are guys in because I don't watch the AL as much that I see that I'm like, who's this guy? Like, when they played Cleveland, I was like, what? How many of these guys are studs? And I barely know their names. It's just how bullpens are. I think this is a much better. I like the floor of this team better. I feel more confident that they can outperform projections. I do not think they're a 91 projection team. I don't think the Cubs. My understanding is if you look at Fangraphs projections, has them at 84.5. Pacoda has them at like 90.7. I would say from what I know, the Cubs' internal projections are like in the middle of that. Like they're within shouting distance of 90 from my understanding. And that's, we'll see what the season holds, but I think that's a big step forward. And you know what? Like, we can get to this. Are they done? Is another big move coming? We don't know, but you and I have been hearing enough that makes us wonder that something may happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, you and I have gotten kind of the messages, internally that like there are people who are not on edge, but people who are hopeful that there is another move to come, or that there are kind of like indications that the Cubs are still very much in the mix for other things. I thought Bob Nightingale had an interesting tweet this week after the Pete Alonso thing goes down of saying that Alex Bregman is still looking for a 6 or 7 year deal. And that, as of a couple of days ago, was also what we had heard, right? Like, as much as Cubs Twitter wants to like kind of force this to happen, like, oh, maybe it'll take like a 3-year deal with opt-outs after every single year. Well, no, I mean, if you look at the Bellinger deal, I mean, that wasn't finalized until roughly like February 25th, February 27th. That was the guy the Cubs had already had on their team, a guy who basically lived down the street and had all this familiarity with all the coaching staff and stuff like that. So if you even go back farther, not saying Bregman is as good as Machado or Bryce Harper, but both of those moves, I believe, were more like early March, maybe. So when you hire Scott Boras, you kind of know what you're getting into. I think when you're in his position and you reportedly, turned down an offer from the Astros that was roughly 6 years and $156 million, you're going to be patient. And now all it could take is one phone call to change those things. I think it's interesting that if you look at some of the teams that we've heard are in the mix, Cubs, Tigers, Red Sox, all run by like Theo Tree executives who I'd imagine see the game fairly similarly and are very wary of long-term contracts. The Blue Jays, I guess everyone likes talking to the Blue Jays, but they're kind of, I think our colleagues at The Athletic have called them the silver medalists. And then Houston just has that wild card, not just the hometown poll, but also Jim Crane, who is very much the like anti-Tom Ricketts in that he likes talking to agents. He likes making deals. He's sort of this, at times, shadow GM, and that Bregman is a foundational, transformational player in Astros history. So,
right.
We've had a couple of these off seasons now where we get to spring training and we're still like bugging people of like, what do you got? What are you hearing? Is there anything
Getting kind of tired
on the horizon? And I'd imagine that's what it'll be like when we get down to Arizona. Even maybe by the time you get down there, when you tap in for me, that's how this could drag out, right?
Yeah. I was complaining to someone. I'm like, this better happen before Patrick leaves. I don't want to deal with this. I want to have my stories ready, my ideas ready, come in and execute them. I got completely waylaid last year where I came in with a bunch of ideas, and then 24 hours after I arrived, Cody Bellinger news breaks, and I'm like, well, can't write any of the stories that I had planned now. Everything changes, which is fine. Hey, like that's how this job works. I think something you touched on there. Jim Crane can be kind of, I don't know if you want to use the word meddlesome. Tom Ricketts isn't like that. That is a positive of his. Okay. I'll give him that. He doesn't meddle and tell Jed how to spend the money. I know we've talked about this, but I just like, it's becoming clearer and clearer as time passes. The Cubs would really like to, this front office would really like to add Alex Bregman. They believe that he could help this team. Fills an obvious hole. Like there's no, it's not hard for me to make to rationalize adding Alex Bregman. The fact that they have to be so creative with money, it's probably the front office doesn't love to give out a ton of years. So maybe that's, I don't know how much of that is them being restricted with finances or just how they like to, come up with creative ideas with length of deals. But the reality is this team is still not a top five in the league, and it's getting really frustrating to have to keep talking about this. But it is the reality that they face, and it should not be. They should not be passed up by certain teams. They need to be in the top five, and it should not. If you're resetting once every few years, I understand that. But you need to get back up there in a timely manner. It cannot be 5-6 years without being in the top five. It is bad. It is not how you should run the Chicago Cubs, and you should not be comparing yourself to the Arizona Diamondbacks or the Tampa Bay Rays or the Cleveland Guardians or the Milwaukee Brewers. Those teams are in different markets. And listen, their owners could probably spend more too. But that's not. I don't cover those teams, so I'm not going to talk about them as strongly as I will the Cubs, who absolutely should be spending more money. And it just like this front office should feel more comfortable to be aggressive with Alex Bregman if they think he's the type of guy that can put them over the top. You want to build a 90 win projection team? I think Alex Bregman may get them there internally, right? And that they have to like kind of pinch pennies. And that there's even talk, I don't know if they would absolutely have to do this, but what happens if they sign Bregman and it's like a $30 million added, right? I think right now roster resource has them at like 211 for the luxury tax. That would get them right at the luxury tax. That's probably low. So that means they probably need to shed salary, and the most logical move would be trading Nico Horner. I just think you cannot operate that way. Like, you should not have to operate that way. I don't know if that's what would happen if they added Alex Bregman. We haven't heard that directly, but
that makes no sense. That makes no sense. Like, that is not a serious operation if you're only going to get Bregman. If you get rid of another Gold Glove infielder, I mean, the whole point of this is they're short one player, and maybe Matt Shaw is awesome from the jump and just takes the job for years. Maybe everyone magically stays healthy. There's no oblique strains and, any collisions on the field. Probably not. I don't think you want to be in a position where you're counting on all of these top 100 players to have to produce next year. I still think after moving Cody Bellinger, they're a little bit short. I think you could even put Mike Tauchman in that bucket of established major league talent that you know what you're gonna get. And so to me, to move Nico makes no sense. I think you nailed it. There's no question about the evaluation of the player, right? Everyone knows Alex Bregman is a very, 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 very good major league player at a premium position. He's going to post. He's probably going to get you 25 homers, 90-ish RBIs, an OPS plus 20, like an Ian Happ, 20% better than the league average at least. But if you're looking at a 7-year deal, let's look at the previous 7 years of why Jed or anyone around him may be a little wary of that. Look at kind of the payroll shifts the Cubs have had during the previous 7 years. We're talking about, I think we're going all the way back to not getting involved in Bryce Harper and Manny Machado, because that was just a non-starter. And, clearly a move that the Cubs would have liked to have a do-over on, or more ability to go get that piece. You have them, 2019, the highest payroll in the major leagues. But it's essentially, at best, been flat since then. And you have all these teams that have jumped them since then, like Phillies. I guess the Padres may come back down. The Mets under new ownership, the Braves just have it rolling there with their stadium real estate development setup they have going on there. So then you have COVID, and essentially the beginning of Jed's tenure of gotta drop salary. So you're non-tendering Kyle Schwarber and trading Yu Darvish and hoping that at some point this year maybe you get something out of Owen Casey, from that return from that deal. Then you have a lockout. We have another lockout probably coming, almost certainly coming, if you listen to Rob Manfred. So the marquee TV network that they launched has been a financial disappointment. So I understand from their perspective of their ownership stays out of it, the business side stays out of it, but I think there's a very clear track record of if you really make that huge commitment to Alex Bregman for 7 years, you may regret it a lot sooner than you imagine. And I do understand why they would want some flexibility on that kind of term. Now the short-term dollars, trying to make that work, that is not a serious organization, right? If you have to trade Nico to do it. But if you're looking 7 years out, I understand why they may be more than a little hesitant on that one.
Yeah, no, I get the long-term issues, and that is, I guess, tied in to ownership, and what they're willing to do, right? That's what you're saying, because that's what happened with, essentially that's what happened with Bryce Harper. There were too many deals that had taken place that, and ownership was basically no, we have enough and we've spent enough. Payroll's high enough.
Mm-hmm.
Go win with what you have. Like go get Daniel Descalso to finish off the
Right.
puzzle, not Bryce Harper. So it is frustrating to continue to have to talk about this stuff, but it is also what is happening, and I think a lot of that, like, look, Jed Hoyer deserves some blame. This team should be better, but he's also not working with the type of payroll that some of these other big market teams are, and he basically started this small market front office a few years ago, right? Like, and that takes years to build that infrastructure. Like
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee didn't just decide to like become this team and instantly start winning games. You know, Tampa Bay didn't just turn on a corner, like turn on a dime. Like these things take time to build, and you have to build it out, and then you hope that it all comes together properly. I don't know if they've done all that properly. I don't know. Like we've talked about that, right? Like is everything, all the infrastructure that they've built, is that good enough? I don't know. Like they need to prove it, you know, with the results on the field for me to really buy in. I feel like they've done better, but until they start winning 90 games consistently, I can't say they've created this draft and development machine and that they're a standout organization. I don't think we're hearing that from others around the league, and until they prove it, how are we supposed to defend such a such a statement, right? So I think it's really as simple as that. Like I'd like to see them spend more. I'd like to see them behave like the big market team that they used to be and that they are. But you know, there are other ways to get there. So we can't completely take blame away from the front office. But I do believe that they sometimes take a little bit too much criticism, and we need to make sure that the spotlight is shown on, hey, they're not behaving like a top 5 market, and they need to.
Well, I think that's going to be the conversation, you know, with this being the final year of Jed's contract. You know, it is not unreasonable for ownership to look at, you know, a payroll around the luxury tax threshold, say $241 million. Maybe they're a tick under, maybe they wind up a little over. We'll see. And look at the rest of your competitors in the division and be like, why can't you build a team better than the Pirates, the Reds, the Brewers, and the Cardinals, particularly the Cardinals at this moment? You know, and I do think it is a strength of the Cubs that because Tom is so hands-off, really baseball operations within those parameters have total autonomy. So like that is why we're stuck, you know, heading into Super Bowl weekend. Do the Cubs still have a big move in it? And I mean, Jed is kind of working within this structure, and Tom is giving them the freedom to really do whatever they want within that. And so that is why, you know, if the Padres are curious about Dylan Cease, they got to check in with the Cubs, right? Because the Cubs do have some, what Tom would say, that dry powder, right? Like that's like his metaphor of like the Cubs can strike. The Cubs will have a ton of resources available at the trade deadline. And I think it would be very wise to unload some of that talent for some major league pieces. And I know you'd rather have a player on opening day than waiting until the end of July, but like there is, you know, I guess there are no perfect owners, right? Like there's pluses and minuses with everything. And I think like this is just kind of where the Cubs are. And, you know, we're not, you know, trying to rip the front office and ownership. We're not trying to make excuses for the front office and ownership. It's more of just like, if you want to be a Cubs fan to understand like what is happening, you have to take all of these things into account. And it's like, you know, Tom is not going to pull a Jim Crane and call up Scott Boras. Like I think they've talked maybe twice in the entire span of Tom's ownership, unless that's changed recently. I kind of doubt it, but they're very, very minimal contact between those two parties. So it becomes, you know, a baseball evaluation. And then as team president, Jed controls where all of those dollars go within baseball operations. So when he sees Craig Counsell approaching free agency, he gives him the biggest deal ever for a manager. And he can go trade for Kyle Tucker and not know whether he's going to sign him or not. But that's totally within his purview. And they'll run stuff by Tom. Tom says they talk every day, but it is not an owner trying to play fantasy GM. And that's on balance, probably a very good thing.
Right. A couple things I just want to make sure I mentioned. So the Cardinals didn't strip down, and wouldn't it be still throwback Cardinals to see Jordan Walker click, and then Nolan Arenado find the fountain of youth, and Brendan Donovan turn into this pesky dude that just drives the Cubs and their fans nuts. I'm not going to rule them out just because they didn't completely strip down, right? And Helsley's still closing games for them, all that stuff. We'll see if
Wilson Contreras.
Wilson Contreras, and he can hit. There's no doubt about it. The dude puts gets on these heaters and can consistently carry an offense. The other thing is I looked at the roster resource, has the Cubs at, I believe, 209 and change. So that's the public stuff. We said it last year, reiterated. It's always low. It's a few million low. Mm-hmm. It was at the end of it was last year. It will be again this year. So let's say it's a couple million. So around 211, 212. I'm guesstimating. I don't know for sure. That's still there's plenty to go add. Mm-hmm. But not Bregman would be pushing it. It would be just Bregman and not anything else would be pushing it. Final thing I wanted to say, you talked about, yes, it is better to have the player for the full season. One thing that was pointed out to me years ago, and this is absolutely true. We may see things as they have these needs, X, Y, Z right now in February. Yeah. By June, July, those needs may look very different.
Great point.
Injury, production, whatever it may be. So there is a benefit I think that's the value in having some payroll flexibility at the trade deadline to just add whatever, and having more knowledge of what your team is and what your team needs are. Right now, we need this. We thought we had this set, but this guy got hurt, or this guy's not producing. This guy had a setback, whatever. He's taking a step back this season. Now we need to go out and get this type of player. I think that's valuable, and I think it's good to have more knowledge of what you're dealing with. That, for me, is more an argument. It's not to add. It's more an argument to make sure you have the flexibility to add at the deadline. That's it. I still think go out and get Bregman. I still think payroll should be at 260. But these aren't things that are going to change as far as we know. Unless something changes at the ownership level where they decide to, hey, maybe this makes sense. But I don't think we've heard any rumblings of that. So, I think that's it, Patrick. You're going to be down there. We will be, talking Cubs from Arizona. You'll be from Arizona. Eventually, I'll be in Japan. And then the season will be upon us before we even know it. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. This is Northside Territory. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, and please subscribe to The Athletic, where Patrick and I are on top of all things Cubs. We'll be back with you early next week. Patrick will be enjoying the nice weather in Arizona, and I'll be freezing my butt off here in the Chicagoland area, but that is life, and I will eventually get out there. Yes. And you will be stuck here in the cold. Thanks, everyone.
Exactly.
Take